Well, glad to know you're there. Let's get into our big conversation. Nigeria sustained its position as the largest oil producer in Africa for 2 straight months as it pumped 1.235 million barrels per day in December. Well, that's according to data from the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC. The latest monthly oil markets reports released by OPEC shows that Nigeria's oil output increased by 50,000 barrels per day based on direct communication. The report for December also revealed that Angola's oil production stood at 1.088 million barrels per day, while Algeria pumped 1.01 million barrels per day based on direct communication. Well, I discussed these feats for Nigeria and indeed the continent, as well as highlighted the challenges and prospects in the sector with my guest, who is very familiar with the oil and gas terrain here in Nigeria and the continent. He's the Managing Director and CEO of Kenyon International West Africa Limited, Dr. Victor Ekpenyong. Well, Dr. Ekpenyong is also an energy expert and entrepreneur. Here is that conversation. Dr. Victor Ekpenyong, entrepreneur, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Kenyon International West Africa Limited. Welcome to the program, and perhaps congratulations are in order for you on your honorary doctorate award.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Thank you for having me to use it.
Yes, so it's a bit of cheering news for us as a country because Nigeria sustained its position as the largest oil producer here in the continent for 2 straight months. I wonder, as an expert in Nigeria's oil and gas sector, what exactly would be your initial thoughts and assessment of this report?
Yeah, it is. It is. It is a great development, not just to Nigeria alone. For us in the industry, last year has been terrible. Terrible. A lot of people lost their job because of the problem that was going on in oil and gas. A lot of companies shut down the operation. There was no production because if you produce, you can't evacuate. So the shutdown of the pipelines and the oil taps and everything, created a lot of hardship for Nigeria. So it's a thing of relief that the last quarter of last year, entering into 2023, we are hearing this news that Nigeria is ramping up production. Production is going up. We can do 1 point something million barrels in a day. And not just the good news, I also want to congratulate the Minister of Petroleum, the Minister of State, Petroleum, and the presidency for all the effort that they have, put in place to see how to ramp up this production. And I also want to crave their indulgence. I want to plead with them to continue to engage the local community, those that are very close to this installation, those that are very close to this asset, for them to see how to ramp up more production, because we have the capacity to do up to 2.53 million barrels of oil per day. So let's see how we can get these black gold to those that need them, and let's see how we can convert them to the money we need in this country for us to push the country forward.
So the reports for December also reveals that Angola's oil production, for instance, stood at 1.088 million barrels per day, while Algeria pumped about 1.01 million barrels per day. So when you look at this production levels for both countries, I wonder what you make of our production here in the continent. As a continent, how would you describe our performance?
For Africa, I would not really say Africa has really performed well when it comes to oil production, because why I'm saying so is that Africa is known from centuries and ages to be a continent of raw materials. So I would be more happier if the industry, in terms of oil industry, are able to change this narrative, because we discovered that nearly almost 80 to 90% of production in Africa is exported into Europe, America, and Asia. Nigeria, the largest producer, 2 point something million barrels, still importing PMS, petroleum products. Angola, the second largest, is still importing petroleum products. And sometimes I wonder, okay, let's say Nigeria, okay, made a mistake, Oil was discovered, a lot of maybe pressures here and there. But what about some of these some of these countries that are just discovering oil recently? Why can't they learn from the other countries? Like I was in Ghana last year. Ghana, the population of 34 million, doing a production of 170 something barrels of oil per day, do not have a functional refinery. They are still importing petroleum products. In all these countries all over, the only country in Africa that I'm proud of when it comes to oil and gas is Algeria. Because Algeria, population of 44 million people, and having 5 refineries that have a capacity to do 540 to 60 barrels of oil per day. So Algeria produce about 1 point something million barrels per day. 50% of their production is being refined in their country. So I'm not really proud of in Africa, because I move around some countries that are producing. I'll discover that most of these countries are exporting their raw material 100% and import the refined product. We're supposed not to be so. I think that is the only area I'm saying that Africa, we are not actually doing well when it comes to oil production.
We need to do better.
Let's bring the conversation home, because only last month, for instance, the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Mr. Timipre Silva, has been quoted as saying that the country needs to improve security surveillance along major crude oil pipelines in helping to shore up oil productions and all of that. So talk to our viewers from that perspective and from that window, just how devastating is the issue of massive vandalism and crude oil theft. I know you're very particular about crude oil theft and pipeline vandalism in the country.
It's terrible. It's terrible, my brother, because why I say it's terrible is that I happen to be, my company happen to be a company that are facing some of these things in Niger Delta. They, 2 years, a year ago, there was a Nembe spillage. Our company was there to see how to restore the environment. There is a lot that is going on. Our companies are also, battling to see how to do this, to stop these menace that is going on in the Nile Delta. The Nile Delta water is polluted, the environment is polluted, everything is in a mess. And not just being in a mess, it's also affecting our economy. We have what it takes to get what we want, but we can't get it the way how we want to get it. So it's a problem. But I want to say the federal government, through the leadership of the president and the Minister of Petroleum, Minister of State of Petroleum, they are doing their best to see how to tackle this. And that is why you see the production is a little bit, ramping up to about 1.6, 1.3, 1.4 million barrels per day. Nigeria was down to below 1 million as of last year.
True.
So with their effort now, which I was last year or the year before last, I was in some of these TV stations, trying to say Nigerian government should engage these hosts in these local communities, because these are the people that are closer to the asset. These are people that will know when an intruder is coming. These are the people that will know what is going on there. Engage them. Let them be part of it. But I thank God today they have been able to engage 1 or 2, and we are seeing the result. So I will plead with them to still do more.
So you wonder if this position of being tagged the largest oil producer in the continent, of being able to sustain that position the last 2 months, November and December, you would perhaps give credit to the decision by the federal government, even though it was really controversial. They received criticism to Tompolo to man those pipelines.
Absolutely. I have to tell you, I think I was being in some couple of media, I think last year before last, trying to talk to those that can hear that what we need, the solution we need for oil and gas, is to engage host communities, is to engage those that are closer to those assets, because they live with them, they understand who is coming there, who is not going there. They know when a company, representatives is approaching the well, they know when it's an intruder that is coming to the well. So I have to give credit to the government for that initiative. But I said they should do more because a lot of companies cannot evacuate. So they still need to work on some of those pipelines that have been, vandalized, and they still need to talk to most of these host communities to see how they can work to boost more production. We have the capacity to do more, and we cannot even meet our OPEX quota. We need to do more so that we can have resources, what it takes for us to run this country.
And so despite the feats, I mean, of being tagged the largest oil producer country in the continent, long queues have remained. Petrol scarcity persists here in the country. Nigerians are biting really hard to buy fuel or petrol in many stations. Nigerians have been made or compelled to buy a liter of petrol as much as 250 naira, 300 naira, 350 naira as the case may be. I wonder what your thoughts and analysis are as regards to this situation. The fact that, I mean, we are being praised or commended or applauded for being the largest oil producer country in the continent. But on the one hand, we have long queues spread all across the country.
Presently in the world, there has been a lot of turbulence all over the world, economic issues, invasion abroad, Ukraine by Russia, some of the things that have contributed to whatsoever some people maybe going through all over the world. PMS and some of the petroleum products all over the world, I can tell it's very expensive now. It's even more expensive than this country, Nigeria. I think Nigeria is one of the countries that buy the cheapest when it comes to PMS and some of those things, some of those petroleum products. If you travel to some, okay, let's bring back, let's even talk about Middle East, Saudi Arabia, the largest oil producer all over the world. I think pump price is cheaper than in Saudi. But I don't want to go into that angle. I don't want to talk about that angle. But I want us as citizens to know that for us to be able to move this country forward, we need to support the government for total deregulation. They have to remove that subsidy. Subsidy need to be taken out. How should government be borrowing money and be importing fuel? And most of this fuel, we burn them in traffic. It's like we borrow money to create jobs in other countries because our refineries are not working. And the money we borrow to create jobs in other countries, we are burning and wasting those money on Third Mainland Bridge and some other places you have traffic. So those money are supposed to be borrowed to invest in infrastructures, high-speed trains, and some of those things that is going to ease transportation, not to import fuel. So we should be talking about, we should be pushing the government to see how to get Port Harcourt refinery, Warri refinery, or whatsoever Kaduna refinery working so that whatsoever pump price they are going to bring out, Nigeria will be able to buy. So it's terrible what we are seeing all over the world, all over the country. In some countries you have to park your vehicles because you won't be able to fuel them. So it's terrible what is going on, but we need to talk to government. We need to cooperate with the government to see how to take this subsidy. This sector need to be deregulated completely so that investors can come in. Also, that want to build refineries can build refineries. You have the product, you refine your products, and you're selling your price and how you want to sell them. So that is the only way to get this problem solved. We are still going to have more queues and more queues and more queues until that this particular sector is completely and fully deregulated.
I want to believe that you have visited some of the refineries as an oil expert. I wonder, why exactly can't we get those refineries working?
That is the question that you directly maybe put the Minister of Petroleum to know why. I think the government has been trying to do their best, pumping some money to see some of these rehabilitation of some of those refineries and these and that. Like Port Harcourt, I think is about 210 million barrels of oil capacity. if Port Harcourt and Kaduna is about either 65 or so, can come up, I think they will be able to cushion the effect of what Nigerians are passing through. But I think and I believe that one of these days we will have a government that will be very, very interested. You have the government that will be very, very peculiar, or try to see how to make sure some of those refineries work, because he's really going to cushion the effect of what Nigerians are passing.
We are, Dr. Ekpenyong, we are in a transitional phase. We are less than 40 days to the 2023 presidential elections. I wonder perhaps as we round off our conversation, what your advice would be to the next Chief Executive Officer of Nigeria's economy.
Yeah, I would just talk about the Naira, because the Naira is almost valueless as we speak. We see the inflation, and we see the exchange rate. So, and the only way for us to stop this problem is to buy Naira, buy from Nigerians, buy what we produce, try to see how we can stop most of this importation. Whatsoever we can produce, there is only no buying them. So I would want to, talk about one or two or three industries which I think the new executive, whichever we're going to hire or the Nigerian is going to hire to be the president, the sector I think he should focus on. Number one, let's talk about manufacturing. Nigerians' demand for forex exchange is to import a lot of raw materials. And how would you be able to manufacture when there is no power? So the new chief executive need to focus on power generation, from power generation to manufacturing, manufacturing to raw materials. Adjunct steel, the new executive need to look into it. Sometimes when I look at the oil and gas industry, the oil and gas industry consume a lot of steel. And all this steel, from casing, from tubing, from platform, all those pipes is imported. And this is what we're supposed to have been getting from our steel plants here in this country. So we need to look into that. They need to look into automobile industry. We import anything from US. Scrap vehicle, we import them. And the vehicles that some users have already abandoned over there in the US, in Europe and some other countries, is finding its way into Nigeria. So how can we patronize local manufacturers or local assembly plants? And one of the things that make Nigeria to be stronger in the 80s or so was that a lot of things were done in country. Peugeot has the assembling plant. So we need to see how to encourage these, that these car manufacturers companies don't need to sell us completely assembled vehicle. They need to get the assembly plants in Nigeria, and they need to assemble vehicles, and we buy from them. Let's talk about textile. Nigerians are known to be very fashionable people. They buy clothes, even what they need and what they don't need, they buy them. Can we look about some of these mariborne industries, the textile industry in the north? How can we bring them back? Can we look at the aluminum smelting company in Ikodobas? We have a lot of need for aluminum, but that plant there is abandoned. So when we are able to harness some of these potential, and we buy from ourselves, we'll be able to lessen our demand on foreign exchange, and before you know, we'll be able to grow our Naira. So those are the angle I think the new president should focus on.
And as regards, maybe in just 120 seconds or less, what would be your advice to the CEO about the oil and gas sector? That's a big decision for him to make when he assumes office somewhere in June, where it's been projected that will put an end to the fuel subsidy regime. What exactly would be your advice to him as regards the oil and gas sector?
In my sector, I will advise that there's going to be a lot of pressure in Europe, America, and for transition. Yeah, we need to transition, but how can we get what we have so that for us to convert them to resources that we need for us to be able to acquire what we need, like the renewable energy. So we need to invest in this industry. Guyana, a small country in the Caribbean, it has a 10 years drilling plan. Papua New Guinea, investing heavily in drilling. We need to invest in drilling hydrocarbon, drilling oil and gas. We need gas to run our economy. We need oil to run our economy. So the new executive, the new president need to look into the oil and gas and to see how to invest in an oil and gas so that it creates jobs and also will be able to boost our economy so that we'll have money for us to pursue transition.
Entrepreneur, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Kenyon International West Africa Limited, Dr. Victor Ekpenyong, thank you indeed for your insights and perspective on the program.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
All right, there you go. That's exclusive chats with the Managing Director and CEO of Kenyon International West Africa Limited, Dr. Victor Ekpenyong. Does it for us here on this edition of Business Week. But it's been such a wonderful journey this past few months, and thank you indeed for being such an important part of the program. I will see you again on the other side of things. I am Kelly Egiga. Bye now.